Hey everybody, how you doing? All right, just making sure everything is set up here properly on the phone. Okay, welcome to the shop, everyone. It's good to see you. It's going to be just a second while we get hooked up. My daughter is going to help me tonight asking any of your questions. She'll relay them to me so that I can answer them. So I'm going to give her a second to get caught up. Are you on yet, sis?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome to the shop, everybody. Let me give you a little background on why I'm doing this particular YouTube live event. A while back, maybe 2.5, 3 months ago, I started using this buffing system on my lathe to buff my pins, and I really didn't say anything about it. I just basically started using it, and it started showing up in my videos. And I got a lot of questions about it, like, what is that buffing system? Where did you get it? How much does it cost? Things like that. And a couple of weeks back, someone sent me a note and said, why don't you do a video on that buffing system and tell us all about it? And I kind of held off on doing that because I wanted to have a chance to get used to the system and to learn it before I really tried to explain it. And the other night I was gathering up some questions because I was going to do a video, and I thought, I got a half a dozen questions here. There's probably a half a dozen more that people are thinking about. Why don't I do a live event, and then I can interact with you guys and you can basically ask me whatever you want. And the beauty of it is I'm going to give you an honest answer because I have nothing to gain or lose by telling you the good, the bad, or the ugly about the system, because it was not given to me by the manufacturer and it was not given to me by any pin-related entity. This was a Christmas gift from my parents. So what I'd like to do is, let you know something else. I've gone ahead earlier today. I turned 2 ink pens, 2 walnut slimlines. And what we're going to do here in a little bit in the video is they have both been finished with CA, they've been micromeshed, and they're both ready to be polished. So what I thought I would do is buff one of them up using my old method of a paper towel and Plastex polish, and the other one will buff up with this buffing system. That'll let us do some comparisons. We'll be able to see how the two look. I've not compared side by side yet, so that's going to be interesting for me to see, but also we'll get a chance to kind of see the difference in time, how quickly you can buff a pin up with this system versus how quickly you buff one up by hand. To get started, have we got any questions, sis?
No,
everything okay? Okay, great. To get started, let me give you a little bit of information. I get asked all the time, what is the system you're using? And it is called the Acrylic Pin Buffing System. It was designed by Barry Gross over at Arizona Silhouettes. Now, I didn't get it from Arizona Silhouettes. My folks got it from Penn State. And what I'm going to do is give you a little information. It was $48.95 for the kit. They do sell replacement parts. You can get a flannel wheel replacement or a cotton wheel replacement. And you can also buy the blue rosin that comes with it that we use for polishing. We'll get into some more of that later. At the end of the video, or toward the end, I'll disassemble this and show you what it looks like. Another question I get asked is, how does it connect to your lathe? And right there, I think you can see it has a number 2 Morse taper. They sell this in number 1 and number 2. You just have to specify which one you want. They're both $48.95. Oh, I was going to give you guys the part number. I'll go ahead and roll these out to you, and then I will later go back and add them to the comments for this video. But for the number 1 Morse taper, it is BG, as in Barry Gross, Buff, B-U-F-F, X, and the number 2 Morse taper is BG, as in Barry Gross, B-U-F-F, no X. So if you're ordering the number 2, leave the X off. What I'd like to do now is I'm going to take this over to the lathe, and actually we're not going to use this one right away. Let's get our pins. We have got a walnut pin ready to be buffed and specimen B. Let's head over to the lathe. I'm going to go ahead and pop this one on the lathe, and we're going to buff it up with Plastex polish and some paper towels, and then we'll come back and we'll do this one with the buffing system. Now, I'm going to apologize. It's going to get a bit bumpy here for a second while I transfer the phone, but hang with me and we'll get you guys hooked up.
What are the questions?
Oh,
They won't come up.
just a second, guys. We've got a little problem here. We can't find the questions.
They won't pop up.
I tell you what, if any of you are familiar with YouTube Live, and can give me a little bit of assistance here. We are not sure where to find the Q&A, the questions. I would greatly appreciate it if you could, well, how in the heck are you going to tell me? I tell you what I'm going to do. Let me put this back on the tripod. Give me just 1 second. I do apologize for this technical difficulty, but let me put this back on the tripod, and let me take this, and I need to find where our questions are coming up at. Live, let's see.
It's not like it was last time.
Live now. How did you get it last time? Do you remember?
I clicked on the video and then they showed up on the side.
Okay, well, let's get out of here. Let's close this. And let's click on the video. And let's see what we got. Well, let's see. Settings. Here we go. Well, I am extremely concerned about this. Let me jump over to my YouTube channel and let's make sure. I think the problem may be I'm not logged into the iPad. So let me jump over to YouTube. Let me find it on here. There it is. And let me get logged in. I think that's why you're not seeing it, because this is not logged in as me. Let's see. No thanks. Sign in. RJB Woodturner. Live chat. Hey, here we go. Okay. Woo, technical difficulties. Before I move over to the lathe, run through the questions real quick, sis, and let me know if there's anything I need to answer.
Matt says, greetings from Woodland, Washington.
Hello, Matt.
John says, hello, Bob.
Hey, John, how are you doing?
Crosscut Creation says, hello, Bob.
All right.
Backwood Guy says, what do you recommend for making wood pins look like glass?
Okay, what do I recommend for making wood pins look like glass? You're going to see that in just a minute. I like to use a thin CA and a medium CA. A couple of coats of thin and then a couple of coats of medium. I polish with micro mesh and then I buff the pin. The pins I've made today have been treated that way. I'm just not going to go into the CA method. If people are interested, you can let me know in the comments, and I would be happy to do a YouTube live on my finishing method. Okay, what other questions have we got? We can skip the hello since we got so far behind. I'm sorry if you guys said hello. I want to say hello now to everyone, but we're going to go ahead and jump up to the questions just to kind of get ourselves caught up.
Cliff says, do you no longer use polish on lathe? And then he said, okay, I guess so. So I guess he figured that out.
Okay, Cliff. Thank you.
Moose says, I've been wondering about these. I get a really good finish with just micro mesh and wanted to know if this makes it better.
We're going to find that out. I get an exceptional finish with the micro mesh. I absolutely love it, and I still use the micro mesh prior to buffing. We're going to actually compare a pin today that has been buffed with the buffing system to one that has been buffed with Plastex and a paper towel. What else have you got, sis?
Nathan James says, can you break it down to see how it fits together?
Definitely. At the end of the video, I want to go ahead and do the buffing first. And then we'll press our pins together over here on the pin press. And once I get the pins pressed together, I will disassemble the entire thing for you. Not a problem.
Thank you, Crosscut Creations, for trying to help us figure out how to get the live chat to come up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Cole says, is it all right if we have questions not about the buffing system?
The answer, Cole, is definitely. However, if we could, let me get through the buffing stuff, and at the end of the video, when all that's done, I will be more than happy to stick around and answer any questions that I can. That way, those who are just interested in the buffing aspect of this can go ahead and drop off. So hang on to your question, and I promise you at the end, I'll stick around for a while and answer.
The rest are just hellos, and thank you so much for
all right. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with me. Let me get you over to the lathe, and we will get this this going. All right. Let me flip the camera.
What material
Okay, we're going to get to that in just a second. Orientation is locked. Rotate the device clockwise. There we go. All right, I think that's a pretty good shot. Let me go ahead now, and we're going to get, this is pin A, or these are the blank. You knew that was going to happen, didn't you? This is, okay.
Todd says he likes your shirt.
Thank you. There it is. I found it. I apologize for all the noise and everything, guys. I dropped one of the blanks, or one half of the blank, below my table, and I had to dig around and find it. Let me look inside my blanks here because I have them marked. This is the back blank. And here's the front one. All right, for this one, I'm going to be using just a little bit of Plastex powder. Is the video looking upside down, sis, or is it the right direction?
Yep, it's the right direction.
All right, I'll be using a little bit of Plastex powder. I'm sorry, Plastex polish. I got this from Walmart back in the auto section. I paid a couple of bucks for it. It wasn't very expensive, and I've been using this for a long time. I used to use this. This is about 11 bucks a bottle. This is about $4 a bottle. And this gives me as good of a job, if not maybe a little better finish than the Hut. I really like the Plastex. Now the way that we apply it, I like to cut my paper towels up into strips. I just fold them over a couple times like this. We'll shake up the polish. The lathe is on the absolute lowest speed that it can go. This blank has been prepared. It has had 5 coats of thin CA on it, then 3 coats of medium. I micro meshed it down to 12,000, and it's at the point now where it's ready to be buffed. The other blank has been treated the exact same way. We're going to turn it on, get a little bit, whoa, a little bit of polish, and we just apply a little bit of pressure. You don't have to press super hard. You just want to produce some friction because this particular polish has a slight abrasive in it. And that abrasive is what will shine up the surface of your pen. Once I've polished it in, I just come back with a clean paper towel and I start to buff it off. And you can kind of see the reflection of the light in it. That's how you know it's polishing. And what I like to do, I've done this for years with my Hut polish and with my Plastex, is I always like to polish it twice. Does that make a difference? I don't know, but in my mind, this is just something that I did as part of my regiment of polishing my pens. I'm getting kind of low on there we go, polish. There we are. Just wipe some on there and give it a little bit of pressure, just like you were sanding. All right. And you can see we've got a beautiful finish on that pen. Let me see if I can zoom you in a little bit. There we go. Should have probably had you zoomed in from the beginning. It's a beautiful finish. I'll bring it up to the camera so you can see it. Let me... There you go. What we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this blank back into the bag marked A. We'll finish buffing the other one, and then we'll take them both over to the assembly table and get them assembled. At that point, we'll be able to compare them and see the difference between buffing by hand and buffing by the wheels. Okay, let me bring B over. With the buffing system, what I like to do is I like to leave, after I micro mesh my blanks, I like to leave them on the mandrel because it's much easier to hold the blanks. Otherwise, if you're trying to hold something this small against a buffing wheel, it's easy for the wheel to grab it and then to basically jerk it right out of your hand. So let me just take a peek inside of these. That is the back one. There's my center one. What I did is I put a circle. I just stuck my permanent marker in there and twisted this and put a circle all the way around, and then I put a dot on the front tip. So that way I know that where the circle is, that's the center band. There's nothing on the back end, and there's a dot on the front end of the pin where the nib will go. And I just did that to make it simpler for for today to be able to put them back on the lathe and get them aligned properly. Okay, I've got this on the lathe. It's ready to be buffed. Now, I just brought the tailstock up. I don't need to do that. What we'll do is I'm going to slide another bushing on here, and I'm going to grab the knurl nut, and I'm just going to tighten this down. What this will do is this will let me hold this mandrel, this blank tightly against the buffing wheels. So I'm going to lay this aside, and so there's no camera tricks. I'm going to lay it right here so you can watch it the whole time. I'm going to bring the buffing wheel over, and as I mentioned earlier, it's just got a number 2 Morse taper. It just slides right into the headstock. On the tailstock, let me bring it back out. There's a dimple in the end of it. Now what you'll need is some type of a live center for the other end. I suppose, well, no, I don't think you could use, yeah, the live center from oh shucks, I forgot what this one's called. The mandrel saver won't work. It's the threading on that is too large. So what I do is I bring over a 60-degree live center, and I use this. Let me just loosen this up, crank it out. All right, I place that right in the dimple. We'll tighten it down. Oh, I hope you still trust me. I took that off camera. All right, we got her tightened down. I'm going to adjust my belts because for these buffing wheels, what they recommend is that you run them about half speed of your lathe. You want them to run a little faster. So this Harbor Freight lathe has 5 pulleys top, 5 pulleys bottom, and I generally run on the center pulley top and bottom. Now, a couple of notes about this, especially when you first put one of these on your lathe. As you charge this with the rouge, the blue rouge, it's going to throw dust everywhere. As you spin these and buff, especially the cotton wheel, mine has gotten better over time, but it's going to throw strings off. I normally run my dust collector when I use this. I won't do that today, but what will happen is your shirt will literally be covered with dust and strings. It doesn't hurt anything. It's just a little bit messy. So if you have the option to run a dust collector, I do recommend running it. What we're going to do now is we just fire it up. A little bit of blue rouge on this is a flannel wheel. And I don't know what the grit is on this blue rouge. I wasn't able to find out anything about it. One of the guys that follows me over on YouTube tried to contact Arizona Silhouettes and find out, and they just said he got some type of comment back. It just was blue rouge. So I don't know if blue rouge is just a standard. I don't really know much about the grit of it. So if you do, if you wouldn't mind leaving some info in the comments, I'd greatly appreciate that because I'd like to know a little more about it. And here's why I like to leave my blank on the mandrel. I can just take it to this wheel, and you want to buff for about 20 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of buff. I've been doing it for a while. I don't know if I'll have it to exactly 20 seconds or not, but I like to just buff up and down. And you can kind of see the dust and the flannel coming off the wheel. All right, and then I'll sometimes turn and I'll buff this away. There was a comment made to me. You'll notice the black on my wheel. As you buff aluminum, and that's what these bushings are, is aluminum. As you buff aluminum, you get a black discoloration on your flannel wheel. Someone mentioned to me that if I just went ahead and left my non-stick bushings on there, that I wouldn't have an issue with that discoloration. So that's a really good idea, and I think I will start doing that with my future pins. Now it's still a little dull, but you can see it looks pretty good. We're going to run it for about 10 seconds on the cotton wheel. All right. Now, take a look at that. Is that gorgeous? All right, let's get this off of the mandrel. And what I'm going to do is put it back in the bee bag. That way we keep them separated. Okay, there's one. There's two, and let me put my mandrel away. Okay, whoa, I don't want to drop them now. All right, let me go ahead and get this mandrel off the lathe because I will disassemble it for you guys, and we'll take it over to the assembly table with us. All right. Now hang tight, we're getting ready to move again. Let me flip you to the other side of the camera. All right, heading over to the assembly table. Let me get my tripod here. Okay. Whoops. There we go. Let me flip you back to the table.
Would you like a few questions first?
You know what? That's a great idea. Let me flip this back around and see if I can answer any questions that people have.
There were a few while you were.
All right.
Tom asks, does the hot wax sticks work with this?
I don't think so, Tom. I know that there are buffing systems. I know companies like Beal have one, and they use like a carnauba wax. They have like a 3-step system where you use like a rosin, a carnauba, and then a cotton wheel to buff. I don't know that I would put the... Well, here's the thing. I would have to try it, but I would be nervous about trying it because once that wax heated up and melted into your flannel wheel, there's no getting it out. So if I were going to try that, I think I would go to Harbor Freight and buy a cheap 4-inch flannel wheel because you can get them pretty cheap there. Harbor Freight, if you don't live, I'm not sure if you live in the U.S. or not, but it's just a store that sells discount tools from China, and you can get a flannel wheel super cheap. And I think it would be worth getting one of those and testing it before I say yes or no, it won't work, because if you melt the wax, it should go onto the pin and it should get right into the grain and everything where you want it. So it could work. I have not tried it, so I can't really. What else we got, sis?
College View asks, what material do you use to charge the buffing pad?
It's called a blue rosin. Let me grab it. Here it is again. It's just a blue rosin stick. It comes with the kit. So for the $48, you get the mandrel, you get the two 4-inch wheels, 1 cotton, 1 flannel, and you get this rosin to charge it with. I'm hoping someone will know what the grit of this is and can leave it in the comments below.
This is a little private down, but Todd Malibu says Lewis Jewelers Rouge 350 grit.
Ah, there we go. The blue.
500.
I keep calling it rosin. It's actually rouge. And it was Tom that said that?
It was Todd.
Todd said that this is a blue jeweler's rouge, and it is a 350 grit. So bottom line is, I'm polishing to 12,000, and then I'm coming back and buffing with a 3,500 grit. My fault. I'm polishing to 12,000, and then I'm coming back and buffing with a 3,500. So I might be downgrading my polish, but still I'm getting a superior shine on my pins that I'm very happy with.
Anthony asked, what make lathe do you use?
Anthony, I have a Harbor Freight lathe. It is a 12 by 18 wood lathe. They go for $199, I believe, at Harbor Freight. And I caught mine. I am a member of their club where they send you all the emails and stuff. And I caught mine with a 25% off coupon. So I ended up getting it for about I want to say 69 bucks out the door. So it wasn't that bad. It's not a super expensive lathe.
Dallin Frost says, I use the same thing more or less, but my cotton wheel does not have my rouge. Is that wrong?
Does not have what?
My rouge.
My rouge?
No, my rouge.
Does not have my rouge. Okay. I guess I'm not 100% sure on the question. I think I understand. Are you saying that you have 2 cotton wheels? Because that would be fine. It's just the flannel is a little stiffer, and it lets you really work the rouge into the blank. I didn't really understand that question, so I'm sorry if I didn't answer it properly. Please ask again, and I'll be happy to take a second shot at it. What else we got, sis?
There's a few people saying hi.
Okay, hello everybody. It's great to be here in front of you. I'm really nervous. You can tell it's hot in the shop. I got the air conditioner off because I don't want the noise, and I'm nervous and sweating, but we're gonna get through this.
Joe asked, do you turn anything other than pins?
Joe, the answer is yes. I mostly turn small items. What's funny, sis?
College View says you made several UL pins. Will you ever make a UK pin?
Okay, let's get back to the first. What was the first question? And then I'll answer that one.
Do you turn anything other than pins?
I do. I turn mostly small items. The other day, I turned some handles for crochet hooks. I turned some small ornaments. I've turned tops. I want to get into turning small lidded boxes and small bowls. I only have the small lathe right now because I got rid of my larger lathe, but I hope to kind of expand. I just really have a good time with pins, and the nice thing about pins is they're very popular and they bring a little money back into the shop to where I can afford to buy tools and consumables. You a K-pin? Oh. Now let me just say, I am from Louisville originally. I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. I absolutely love my Cardinals. If the Cardinals play the Cats, I'm wearing red, but I also love the Cats when they're playing anybody else, and I'm for the Cats 100% as long as they're not playing the Cards. I would possibly turn a UAK pin. I just have never had the opportunity to turn a UAK blank. If one happened to show up, I would turn it with pride. Let me leave it at that. Any other questions? Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, there are a few more, and then we'll get started. Charles says, I like the shirt, and I know the answer, but are you Batman?
Charles, Bruce Wayne would never reveal his secret identity.
Someone else asked, how long have you been making pins for now?
Ooh, that's a great question. I started making pin videos in 2013, and I probably started making pins about 3 years before that, so maybe about 2010, give or take maybe a year. Might have been 09, might have been 11. I don't remember exactly. All right.
Matthew says that about 50%, he's a Harbor Freight fan, but about 50% of his tools fell apart. So he said, what's your opinion, and have any of yours ever broken or fallen apart?
What I'm going to say about Harbor Freight, I don't want to get into too much of a debate. Some of the stuff at Harbor Freight is good, and some of the stuff at Harbor Freight is junk. In regard to this lathe, I used to have a Ryobi lathe, which was a little hobby lathe, a #1 Morse taper. I used it for years, and the potentiometer went out when I was preparing for a show. I needed a lathe, and I needed it fast. I happened to have a 25% off coupon. I went to Harbor Freight. They had one on the shelf. I bought it. I brought it home, and I've been in this house almost 2 years. It probably was about 3 years old when I came over here. I'd say I've had it for about 5 years. I've probably turned 2,500 pins on it. I have not had a moment's issue with it, with one exception, and that is the tailstock does have a tiny bit of play in it. So if you're cognizant of that, it's not a bad tool. I have had tools from Harbor Freight lay down on me, so it's kind of a crapshoot, but I don't have anything super negative to say about them. All right, I'm going to hold off on the questions for a minute, and I'm going to get back to assembling these two pins so that we can compare A to B and see if there is a difference, and then we'll do some more questions, and I promise I'm going to disassemble this mandrel with the buffing wheels on it. So let me get you guys set back up. All right, let me flip you around. Okay, please ignore my table. There's lots of junk on it. Okay, pin A and pin B. Let's get pin B out of the way. I've already got the parts out of the baggies to make this a little quicker. We'll throw these together. Here we go. This is where the nib goes. I get asked a lot of questions about this this pin press. This is a Miles Craft pin press. I've been wanting one for a number of years and just didn't want to spend the money. And I was in Shelbyville, Kentucky at Tim Babb's shop, the Woodworking Maniac. And Tim is now a Miles Craft distributor. He sells their lathes, or I'm sorry, their tools. And he happened to have this, and I couldn't resist. I decided to treat myself, so I bought one. And my old press, in case anyone's curious, a gentleman had commented. He had just started turning and was asking if I would sell it to him. and I told him if he would take care of shipping, I'd pass it along. I'm trying to do that with tools that I'm replacing, because it's just kind of a way to encourage other people to get into the hobby and stay with the hobby. Okay, not too bad. That looks pretty good. Okay, and let's find there's the center section there. I'm gonna get this other bag over here that wants to roll off my table, and I don't want to have to continue to fight it. There we go. Let's get this assembled. Looks like one more. Okay. There we go. Bring that up to the camera so you guys can see it. Not too bad. This is A, so what I'm going to do temporarily is stick it back in the A bag so we can keep them separate, and we'll take a close look at the end. Let's bring B over. Sorry about the quickness of assembling these, but I didn't want you guys to have to sit and watch a full-blown video. I was trying to be able to move a little quicker for you. Let's see. There we go. The nib goes in this end. Sis, if a question comes up while I'm doing this, I can go ahead and answer questions while I'm working on this.
Okay, Shane asks, you usually use a CA finish. Do you have a video on friction finish for things that aren't handled as much?
The answer is I usually do use a CA finish on most of my pins because they are handled. I'll use friction on ornaments and items that aren't handled much. I thought I had a video on that. If not, I would be more than willing to do a video on using friction polish. I just don't use it as often as I used to. We got lucky on that one. That was a perfect fit.
Francisco says, thank you for helping us make pins. I really appreciate your help.
Well, thank you, Francisco. I appreciate that comment. That means more to me than anything. I love hearing from people that are enjoying my videos, because the reason I started making them is when I started making pins, there were a lot of videos out there, but the videos, these guys always would turn these pins and they were perfect every time. And, you know, I would get frustrated because I would turn a pin and have an issue. So I wanted to make videos that explained in detail how to do things. And if there was an issue, I wanted to address it in the video. And I want people to be able to learn. I love teaching. Let's bring these up here. We got A and B. Here they are.
Alice would like to know what kind of wood you said that the pin was.
Oh, these are both made of walnut. The walnut sent to me by Jim Zimmerman. Now the pin on the left is the pin that was buffed with the buffing wheel. It'll be on top now. The one on the, I'm sorry, buffed by hand, and then the one on the bottom is the one buffed by the buffing wheel. I can't tell a whole lot of difference in the pins. The finish is superior on both of them. It's tough to see on camera, but I truthfully can't see a difference. They both look amazing. Okay, so let's go ahead and lay these back down. Let me flip you guys around. Okay, now what I will say about this is, let me get my tripod set up straight here so you guys can see me. Let me pull the pins back. I'm going to look at them a little closer now since they're behind the camera. Maybe, just maybe, the one on the buffing wheel is a little deeper looking, but I really can't tell much of a difference. Where the true benefit of the buffing wheel is you saw the speed with which I was able to produce this pin, or produce this finish. So, is it a necessity? No, it's really a nice to have, but it's an extremely convenient nice to have. So, I don't want to say rush out and get one because $50 is a lot of money, but if it's something that you're interested in, if you're producing a lot of pins, and especially if you're producing acrylic pins, the ability to be able to buff them just so quickly and knock them out quickly is definitely worth the $50 in my book, especially if you're going to do a craft show and you've got to knock out some pins quickly. Even though I can't tell any difference, there's just something about that buffing wheel, I just feel like it's better. That's just me. That really means nothing. That's just kind of an in my head opinion thing. How about some questions, sis?
Charles Ward would like to know, as far as pin press goes, have you ever considered using a bench vise instead?
The answer is I have used vices. Let me show you something here real quick. And I just want to say, since we've got the pins pressed together, I'm getting ready to disassemble that in just a minute. What I did, Charles, is I took some UHMW, some some Delrin, which is similar to UHMW, ultra high molecular weight, and I turned these, and they kind of simulate a number 2 Morse taper. One of them has a hole in it. I'll put this one in my tailstock, this one in my headstock, and then I can crank the tailstock crank and press my pins together right on my lathe. I really like that. A bench vise would work the same way, but you're having to hold the pin and crank it, and I always worried that just, I don't know, I just worried that had too much torque. I really like doing it on the lathe because it's such a micro squeeze when you turn it. It just pushes them together so slow. I use these when I travel. I don't use them in the shop because I've got the Miles Craft, and I like using that a little better.
Tom would like to know, do you ever turn any of the laser inlay pin kits?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I got a video out there. I turned a laser line kit. It was a music note kit, maybe about 8 or 10 videos ago, and it was gorgeous. I had a little bit of trouble getting it assembled. A lot of that was because I think I got these big old hands and they had all those tiny pieces, but I did one in that video. Look for a music note pin, I think it was called.
Crosscut Creations, how do you finish your acrylic blanks?
Great question, great question. On the acrylic blanks, what I do is I'll turn them down and I'll try to get as smooth of a finishing cut as I can with no tool marks. So just that last cut, that's why I use that long roughing gouge, because I can plant it right here in my hip and I can just rotate my whole body and go right down the tool rest and get a nice finishing cut. And then I come back and I micro mesh up to 12,000. Once the pins are micro meshed, they're ready to be buffed. I used to buff them with the hand method. Now I'm using the buffing wheel, and I'm having great luck. They look amazing. They pop. While she's asking me a couple of questions, I'm going to go back over to the bench and point you back at the bench, and we're going to start disassembling this mandrel so that you can see what all the parts are associated with this wheel, this buffing wheel. Let me get you set back up. Sorry about the jostling around.
Holly says, hi Bob, have you ever used linseed oil with C8 glue?
Is that Holly Fritz?
Yeah.
Hey Holly, how are you? No, I have not. A lot of people have told me about it, but I just have not tried it. I'd be interested to try it, but maybe one of these days. Here we go. There's a knurl nut on the end. You can see this is larger than a standard mandrel. I'll bet that's about an 8mm, just guessing. It's got a nice big knurl nut on it. There's a plastic sort of a bushing that goes at the end of the mandrel. These wheels, and you can see these are just, there it is, just a cotton wheel. There's no insert or anything. It's just a cotton wheel that slides on there, and then these mandrels, or these bushings, press it together. There's a big center bushing. Then you've got your flannel wheel. Now I think a fella could make one of these with a couple of these from Harbor Freight and even some wood. But that's all there is to it. It's just a nice large mandrel, and it is larger than, let me go grab a standard mandrel and we can take a look at how much larger it is.
Joe says, I've only turned 4 pins, 2 before seeing your videos, and for the last 2, I've consulted your videos, especially for the finishing of them. Thanks for the excellent detail. Well,
thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. You can see that there's a little bit of difference. Let me put them end to end. It's just a bigger, more substantial mandrel, and I think you probably need that with the pressure you're putting on it with buffing, and probably the thicker mandrel avoids vibration, because when you've got, this wheel that's 4 inches spinning, it probably helps with vibration. That's a guess. Let's put her back together here. We'll just slide that on. We'll slide our wheel on.
Jim and Nigel have both started wood turning not that long ago. And they say, thank you so much. You're a very big inspiration. And they love trying what you do.
Well, thank you, guys. I appreciate that. All right. Let me flip the camera around one more time. I'll get you guys facing me one more time. Sorry about the view, huh? Hey, I tell you what, that's pretty much all I had on that. I know there were some other questions. I've been trying to kind of field a few of them, but if you have any questions related to this, please let me know. If you have any questions, period, please let me know. And if you guys like this format and would like to do it again and have any ideas for topics for a YouTube Live, I'd like to know those as well. Because if you like them, I'll do them. What questions have we got, sis? Any new ones coming in?
Steven says, you make primarily slimline pins. Is that because of cost?
I tell you, Steven, lately I've been making a lot of the, they're all the same. The Sierra, the Manhattan, the Wall Street, the Gatsby. I've been making a lot of those, and I really am liking those pins. They're just kind of a step up on the niceness scale. They're just a little classier. I do make a lot of slimline pins, and one of the reasons I make slimlines for videos and that type of thing is they are inexpensive. You wouldn't think it costs a lot of money to make videos, but when you go out and you get sometimes I get the blanks, you guys send them to me, but you buy the pin and you put it together, and it does cost a little bit to do that. So I tried to keep it inexpensive. I have been moving my kits up to a nicer kit. But I will tell you something, if you can turn a slimline, a lot of people disrespect the slimlines, but if you can turn a slimline, you can turn any pin there is. So they're a great practice pin. I also have a lot of people that will drop by the shop and want to try a pin they've never turned before. It's great to have a bunch of slimlines on hand because a guy wants to turn a pin, I go grab a blank from up top of the loft, give him a $1.50 pin kit, and he can turn one, take it home with him, and I'm not out a whole lot of money. So that's kind of where the slimline thing comes in.
Liam says, where are you? I'm located in the UK.
Hey, Liam. Wow, hello from across the pond. I am in Newburgh, Indiana. If you look at a map of the United States and you look at the state of Indiana, Indiana kind of comes down to a little point. I'm down by that point. That's the best way to describe it.
Shane says, need to see a tool sharpening video from you.
I've been getting asked about that a lot, Shane, and I am really close to being ready to do one. You might have, if you follow me over on What You Doing Bob, that's just kind of my shop update channel. I recently put a couple of CBN wheels on a low-speed Rikon grinder, and I've got my Wolverine system set up with it. And truthfully, I've been relearning how to sharpen because as I started sharpening my tools, I would see that the bevels weren't quite right because I wasn't sharpening right. I had a 6-inch grinder instead of an 8. It was high speed instead of low speed. It was stone wheels versus a CBN. There were so many things wrong. But now that I'm set up, I'm really close to producing one of those videos. And I have a couple of times in my pin videos kind of showed some turning or some sharpening, this is how I kind of sharpen. So I'm getting real comfortable with that. So very soon.
Todd would like to know where you buy your pin kits.
That's a great question. Primarily, I've been buying from Penn State. I know a lot of people don't like Penn State. If you call Penn State and order on the phone, you tend to not get as quick a service or as good a service. But ordering online, I've been getting fantastic service. Now lately, I was in Richardson, Texas. I bought a bunch of stuff at Rockler. I've been stopping in Louisville at the Woodcraft buying stuff. Where else have I been buying stuff? Peachtree. I bought some stuff from Peachtree. I've been kind of expanding out a little bit, but I do buy a lot of stuff from Penn State. That's my primary distributor.
Oak Show says, Bob, if I send you a few pin kits, would you compare them to your usual supplier and include the cost? Tony. I guess his name's Tony.
Yeah, Tony. I know who he is. Yeah. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
If he sends you a few pin kits, would you compare them to your usual supplier and include the cost?
Sure. Be happy to.
Okay. This is it's a DJ Hero 714, and it's basically she made pin kits 4 years of high school and recently graduated.
Okay.
Loves making them and wanted to take it to the next level and pursue this. Are there any tips you'd like to give them and ideas? You're a great inspiration.
Tips and ideas. Wow, taking it to the next level. By taking it to the next level, I don't know if you mean just starting to sell kits or if you mean making a career out of selling pins. If you're talking about a career out of selling pins, I'm kind of keeping it as a hobby, so I don't really have an answer for that. But taking it to the next level as to going to shows and what have you, that's not too bad. What I did is I decided I was going to sell at shows. So I went to about 6 shows one year. The next year I went to 2. I dropped 4 of them because they weren't really good shows. One of the shows I went to was in an artsy community, and the other one is at a courthouse that is a huge show and brings a lot of people through. So the first year I considered, I'm going to lose money. This is an investment. This is a learning opportunity. I did a video on craft shows where I talk about, kind of doing that. The trick is, for me, and I found this out, and I don't want this to sound wrong, but a very older gentleman who had been selling at shows for years came to see me at a show, and he said, "Son, you're doing it all wrong." I had my pins, I had these nice cases out there. My pins were all in these cases, really beautifully laid out. He goes, "You got to get them on the table." He goes, "When somebody walks up, you hand them a pin. Say, hey, take a look at this pin. Hand it to them. Make sure your pins have nice fit on all the components. They got to be beautiful. They got to be shiny. People like shiny. I would prefer not to use CA. I would prefer to finish them with a friction polish and have a more natural look. But the problem is they get grungy and dirty and they just don't look as shiny, and people want to buy something new and shiny. So superior fit, shiny pin. When someone comes to your table, have notepads laying down, hand them a pin and say, check out how that thing writes. Tell them the story on the pin. That's made from wood from such and such, or this came from a such and such tree. Know your woods and where they came from. If there's a story behind the pin, this came from the USS Alabama. It's teak from the deck of the Alabama. Tell them that. They hear that story, that sells the pin. I hope that helps. It's a lot.
Rob, I don't know if he'll be able to help you out because this has never happened to him before, but Rob Evans would like to know any tips for restoring a lathe after being 5 feet of water, under 5 feet of water.
Oh my God.
We were flooded.
The lathe is wet?
Yeah, it was under 5 feet of water.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Wow. I'll be honest, I have never faced a situation like that. All I can do is say, my heart bleeds for you. I am so sorry that you are in a situation where you were under 5 feet of water. If anyone has any tips or advice for that, please add it to the comments because I don't know how to answer that one. What else we got there, sis?
I saw one of your videos that you did with Ultra Shine and Shell Wax, which is your preferred CA finish, or Shell Wax?
Okay, I love Shell Wax. I used to use Hut friction polish, and then I migrated off to Triple E, Ultra Shine, and Shell Wax. And with the Hut, let me back up. When I first started turning, I began using Hut friction polish, and you just put a bead of it on the paper towel and rub it in until it gets hot and it seals the pin. Then you come back with a brown and a white Hut wax, wipe them on there, and then buff them off and let it melt in. I got kind of tired. That sticks to your fingers. It's kind of nasty feeling. I went with a product called Shell Wax, and there's another product, it's a paste called Triple E Ultra Shine. And I would come in and put the Ultra Shine on after I sand it. Then I would put the Shell Wax over it. Got a beautiful finish. It's very easy to use. Now, comparing the Hut friction polish to the Ultra Shine, I think the Ultra Shine gives a superior finish. Comparing both of those to CA, if it's going to be handled all the time like an ink pen, you'll have an ink pen that within 6 months, if somebody uses it every day, it's kind of grungy looking and dirty looking. It just doesn't look nice with either of those products. Using a CA, I've got pens out there that are 3, 4, 5 years old that look darn near as good as they did the day I turned them, because the CA just protects them from the oils and the moisture and everything. I do prefer Shell Wax if I'm making a Christmas ornament or a top or anything that's not going to be handled much, because it gives that rich, warm wood look and feel, as opposed to kind of the plasticky look that you get from the CA. I hope that answers that for you.
Shane says, how about having one of your kids turn a pin under your supervision as a video? Is that not a video already?
No, it's not. But I'll tell you, Shane, all 3 of my kids have turned pens and they've turned styluses. I just haven't done a video, and the main reason why is my children are younger, and with this is going to sound kind of strange, but my wife asked me not to have them in the videos that often at their current age, because in the internet age, it is so easy for, if there's some crazy person out there who's a stalker and sees one of them and takes a liking to them, you can find them like that. It is so darn easy. So we have elected to sort of protect our children a little bit by not having them in a lot of videos. I know I've had them come out once or twice and, you know, give them a pin or something, but I try not to keep them in the video or use them in the videos that often, just for their own safety. Now, as they get older, they do enjoy the scroll saw and they do enjoy the lathe. Quite possibly that will happen. So maybe in the future, but it's a great suggestion. It's just we're very careful parents.
Brad says, I noticed a lot of Rockler's kits are named like PSI. Does PSI supply Rockler?
If you look at your kits, yeah, a lot of your kits, I don't know who makes PSI's kit. It's somewhere over in Taiwan, but a lot of those kits are just renamed kits. And you may notice, you'll look at it and maybe the center band to be a little different, you know, or there might be a subtle difference, but there's a company that makes a lot of them and supplies a lot, like Peachtree, and they supply a lot of these different companies. So yes.
Shane says, yep, I totally understand. Just thought it would be cool, but you were right.
Thank you, Shane. It's a great idea. It's just, I'm cautious.
Someone says, I bought a lathe and realized I don't have a drill press. What are my options?
Well, I'll tell you what. That's a great question and a really good question. This right here is called a Jacob's chuck. I use it, I just put an old mandrel in it. I used to have one of the mandrel saver mandrels and I bent it. So I just chucked up an older mandrel in a Jacob's chuck. This is just like the chuck off of a drill press. You buy one that comes with a number 2 Morse taper. I want to say they're about 35 to 40 bucks. Basically, you put this in your tailstock, okay? And you would get a set of pin jaws. Now your pin jaws, I've seen those, they're about 80, 90 bucks, all right? So you're looking at what, let's say 90 bucks plus 40, let's say 120, $130 is what it's gonna cost you. But you can drill your blanks right on your lathe. You just chuck a bit up in this, bring your tailstock up, and you crank it in and drill right down the center of your blank. It should give you a perfectly centered hole every time. With my lathe I mentioned earlier, it's got a loose tailstock. My holes on my blanks tend to wallow out. So that's why I go with a drill press. You don't need one. I also know, if you look up Milescraft, M-I-L-E-S-C-R-A-F-T on Google, they sell a device where you can mount your drill. It just clamps your standard hand drill, whether it be electric or cordless, into the device, and then you can put your blank below it and you can lower that straight down, and you could use that for drilling, and it would be way cheaper than the $120. I don't remember what they cost, but I remember seeing them at Tim Babb's shop.
Steven says, have you ever tried to paint porous wood and then have the paint show through the pores? Any tips on this?
Paint porous wood?
Yes.
I honestly, I don't think I've ever painted wood. I have tried to dye wood before, and I made the mistake of sanding it down to 600, then putting the dye on. Well, it was such a smooth surface, almost like it was burnished, that the dye did not soak in. So when I went to put a friction polish, which is what I was using at the time, my rag or my paper towel just turned green and most of it came off. So I've also tried stain, but same issue. That was early on in my career. I haven't done much of that recently because I prefer just to let the natural color of the wood speak.
Nigel said, could you do a video on a scroll saw if possible, please?
Nigel, what would you like to see on a scroll saw? I do have one right there, and I've done a couple of videos on doing some intarsia on the scroll saw, but let me know what you'd like to see, and I'll see what I can work up for you.
David says, I use my lathe to drill my blanks, and it works great. So there's an answer to a question that was earlier before. And then Jim says, if the lathe is being drowned in salt water and you can get to it before the salt does a lot of damage, it would flood the machine with water from your hose.
Okay. Jim, in regard to the lathe that was underwater, If it was salt water, he said take the lathe and flood it with fresh water from your garden hose to get all the salt out before it gets a chance to really do any deterioration. And then I guess, in my own mind, I would follow that up with some type of a lubrication. I would coat the machine in some type of, I don't want to say WD-40, that's not one of the better lubricants, but get some kind of a lubricant to just cover it, to stop it from rusting. And then you could wipe that off, and provided the motor's not shot, that's the part that worried me. Provided the motor's not shot, you maybe could save the cast iron bed and the headstock and the tailstock and all of that stuff.
College View asks, what is the most difficult pin, or the most difficult type of pin at blank you have turned?
Well, I would have to say, and it really wasn't the pin's fault, probably the over-under kit from Penn State. It's like a shotgun shell on the cap and a bullet on the bottom. And it really isn't the kit's fault that it's difficult to turn. It was the type of material that the person requested that I turn it in. Because on the cap, you have to drill such a large hole. And I was using, it wasn't ebony, it was it was African blackwood. And as I was drilling, I was trying to go really slow, but if the bit heated up at all, it kept exploding. That was probably the most difficult. That and I just did it not too long ago, the Cameo. And the Cameo was tough for me because the instructions were not as plain as I thought they should have been. There was a little trick to getting the cap on that I didn't think was very well explained. May have been my fault, but that'd be my answer on that, those two pins.
Okay, I don't know if Steven understood what you said or if it skipped when he was watching you or something.
Yeah.
Because he asked the same video about painting porous wood.
Yeah.
And having the paint show through, which you have not done. So I don't know if he heard that or just didn't hear it or something.
Okay.
Or if he has a different question and I'm just not understanding
Okay.
it.
Back to Steven and the porous wood. Painting a blank, I've never painted one. And if you're talking about the paint showing through, porous wood. Are you talking about painting the tube and then it's showing through because the blank is really thin? Because I've not had that issue with wood. I have had it with acrylic, but I've just never painted a blank. And my thought would be if you did, the paint would get into the pores, and as you sanded off the outer layer, it would really make the pores pop and show what was in them. I'm not sure how to answer that question beyond that. I'm sorry.
That's it besides that. So I don't know if you want to wait a
All
few
right.
seconds to see if Steven comes back with what his
All right,
question was.
I'll give it just a couple of minutes. Yep, we'll see if, Steven, if you're still out there and still listening, and I didn't answer that question, if you could kind of refine your question and shoot it back through. If there's any more questions, I'll take a couple more minutes and try to answer them. I mean, I'm here to try to help as much as I can, so, and I hope these answers are helping you guys.
A few people have said just with the lathe that was underwater that the idea is just to get all the salt and contaminants out of it before it gets to soak in to try and save it.
Okay. Once again, the lathe being underwater, everyone is saying get the salt and contaminants out of it before it gets a chance to set in and start corroding. So, and that does make sense.
Nathan James says, I can see the stickers behind you. How do we get one of your own?
Aha, Nathan. Okay, I tell you what. Go to any of my videos, and there's a section in the comments that says for shop stickers. Generally, I ask that you just send me a stamped self-addressed envelope, but just send me an email, and my email's on there, with your address, and I'll drop you one in the mail.
Okay. College U asks, how do you know how to price your pen?
Boy, that's the $1 million question. The way I price my pens, go to pennstate.com. Okay, maybe you didn't buy the pen from them. Maybe you bought a Manhattan from Rockler, or you bought a Wall Street from Woodcraft. Their version of that is called the Gatsby. Go to Penn State online, look up the Gatsby. They'll have up there high price, low price, and mid-range of what people say they're selling that pen for. I'll usually take a look at the mid-range price, and I'll kind of start there. If I think it's low, I may add a couple of bucks, but I'll start there and I'll sell them. And if they sell really well, I'll bump the price up $2 or $3. And you get to a point where they sort of stop selling, then back them back down to where they were, and that's where I line them out at. It takes a little trial and error, and for me to say, well, sell that pen for X dollars, Your area may generate more revenue for a pen than my area or less. So you may be pricing yourself out of the market. That's where I start. And the other thing is go to craft shows and look for other turners and see what they're selling them for. That'll give you a good baseline too for your area and what it'll bring for a pen.
Carlos says, Bob, do you have any more blanks you and Lacey made that you'll be turning? Yours came out better.
Oh, right now I do not. Lynn and I, you know how it is when you go visit somebody, you spend so much time talking and just hanging out. And we just did a lot of let's call it male bonding. We went to the Rockler store and we shopped for hours, and we only turned those 2 blanks. I would hope that Lynn and I have the opportunity to do some collaborations in the future because he's a great guy. He's been up here before and we've gone to shows together, and we have talked about turning some other stuff. So there may be some more videos coming from the 2 of us. It's just nothing's on the books right now, but I love working with Lynn. He's a great guy.
Shane says that's awesome advice on pricing pens. And Dallas asks, are you going to start casting blanks?
The answer is yes. I don't know how soon. I am going to, there's a pen turners gathering. Anybody who is not aware of this, I want to get the word out on this again. I've been posting on it on my Facebook page and on Instagram and stuff a little bit, and it's been a while. Send me an email. Go to any of my videos. My email is in the comments. Send me an email and say, tell me about the pen turner gathering. In September, I think it's 14th and 15th. It's the weekend in September, right around the 14th and 15th. Up in Belpre, Ohio, which is above Cincinnati, there's a pen turners gathering, and they have a bunch of people coming in. It's a 2-day deal. They're going to be demoing, and Fred Wisson is going to be there. Fred's the guy that makes all those little molds for blanks. Now, to get back to the question, so that's a great place to learn. I'm going there to learn as much as I can. As soon as I can afford the pressure pot and all of the accoutrements that go with it, I want to start casting. I'm excited about it. And I'm hoping, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, that I get up to the show and there are some show deals where maybe I can save a few bucks on a pressure pot, or maybe Fred's got some deals on his molds or whatever. So yes, as soon as I possibly can.
Liam Hill asks, Bob, how do we get one of your stickers in the UK?
Liam Hill, send me your address and I got one coming your way, buddy. You've been around for a long time. I owe you one. Just email me your address.
Crown of Jewels says, I saw Stephen Ogle finish his pens with spray on poly instead of CA glue. Have you ever tried finishing a wood pen with spray poly, and what would you think about it?
I've never done the spray poly. I was always leery about sprays on the lathe, and you can see my bed is all messy from the water dripping from a micro mesh. I have used wipe-on poly. It gave a really nice finish. The only reason I didn't use it is, as I wiped it on, it kind of had, not really ripples, but it wasn't a super smooth surface, and I couldn't go back over it with the micro mesh. So I experimented with it for a while. It gives a nice finish. It's going to last a long time like CA. If you get like a satin, it's going to give you more of that wood look and feel. But what I would say is experiment with it. Get yourself a junk piece of wood, a scrap, and just turn it down round. It doesn't have to be the shape of a pen. And put some on and try it and see what you think. The texture of the surface just wasn't smooth enough for me, and that's why I didn't stick with it. But Steve is a smart guy. I follow his videos, and it probably works great if he says it does because he knows his stuff. I just have not used spray on the lathe.
Crosscut Creations says, can you cast pen blanks without a pressure pot? I'll be at the Pen Turners event and can't wait to meet you.
All right, I'm looking forward to meeting you too. The answer is yes. Supposedly the liquid diamond that Lynn and I used can be cast without a pressure pot. It's better to use a pot. I do know that it's called, oh shucks, a guy in my club, dang it, this blank right here, a guy in my club makes this blank, and he sells these to some different companies that resell them. Polyester resin, that's what it is. He buys polyester resin and he pours it into ice cream containers. And he puts whatever, like this has brass in it, where you would drill brass out. It would have the curlicues. He puts the brass in, uses polyester resin. Only issue is it stinks to high heaven. So make sure you got great ventilation. But he makes about 100 of these at a time. So yes, you can with certain resins. In regard to that, research your resins. Some do, some don't.
Shane's copying your saying here. He says, "Hey Bob, if you're ever in South Central Pennsylvania, I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop."
All right, Shane. You know, there's a small possibility I may be up around Collegetown, Pennsylvania one of these days. I got a sister that lives up that way. I don't know how far away that is, but if it's not too bad of a road trip, I might just take you up on that.
A few people are saying that you don't always need a pressure pot all the time.
Yeah, I'm not super well versed in casting. I'm learning. That's one of the things I went to Lynn's for, was so I could get an education from Lynn. I've got a couple of other guys, a dude named Joel Taylor, a guy named Michael DeLauter. I'm also friends with Zach Higgins, and I plan, as I move into this, to start picking their brains pretty hard. I've got a lot to learn. I'm no expert on that. I am way down at the bottom of the learning totem pole. But this show, I think, is going to be a great way to kickstart it for me.
Janet says, "I just did a poly finish and the finish isn't super smooth. I was wondering if buffing it would make the finish smoother."
Possibly. The problem with poly is if it gets too hot, it's liable to melt and it could gum up. You know, if you've ever tried to sand polyurethane off of something, it can kind of gum up a little bit. So what I would say honestly is get a scrap piece of wood, true it up, put some on there, let it dry, and test it. That's what I do a lot of times. I got all these scraps, pin cutoffs, and I just true them up and test stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry for taking so long, Backwoods Guy, but what do you recommend for making a pin look like glass?
To make it look like glass, I like the CA finish. That's kind of got your glass look to. I know the video is that great. It's coming through my cell phone, but I use the way I do my pins, and I've got a video out there on it, is I use 5 coats of thin CA. And the reason I use the thin is it's like a sanding sealer. It soaks in and seals the blank. I follow that up with 3 coats of medium CA. I will use more if needed, but 3 is my base. Once you get those on there and let them dry, do not use accelerator or activator until the very last coat, because it dries so fast it'll cause it to shrink and crack. You don't want those micro cracks in your pin. On the very last coat, I'll let it air dry for a few minutes, and then I'll shoot it with an activator to seal it. I'll buff it, or I'll polish it with micro mesh. I call it micro mesh. I use the pin stake polishing kit. It only has 6 pads. Micro mesh has, I think, 9, but both do a wonderful job. Polish it up and then buff it. I like the Plastex, or lately I'm really liking this buffing wheel, and you will get a finish that just is gorgeous. It looks like a glass finish, and the pin just shines, especially if you do pins and you do an outdoor show. They just light up when natural sunlight hits them.
Terry Wolf asks, "How can you create a personalized pin?"
How can you create a personalized pin? Okay. I got a couple of buddies. I mentioned their name a minute ago, Michael DeLauter and Joel Taylor. There are a lot of other guys that do this, but these are guys that I'm buddies with. And what they can do is they can take pretty much any photograph and they can print it out on a what they call a waterproof label. It's an Avery label, and they print it out to where it's just the perfect size for the diameter of your tube. They literally stick it to the tube, okay? Then they put that in a mold and they pour clear Alumilite around it, put it in a pressure pot, put whatever I don't know, 30 pounds, 35, whatever the proper pressure is. I'd have to ask them. When it comes out, you get something like this.
No UK pin right now.
So,
Carlos asks, "Any preferences on CA brands?"
yes. Everybody has their favorites. I'll show you mine. Let me get it out of the baggie here. For thin finish, I really like, this is from Penn State. It's the PSI. It's called, what does it say on there? It just says cyanoacrylate wood finishing glue, consistency thin, cure speed fast. This stuff will cure in about 15 to 20 seconds. I absolutely love it. 5 coats of that. You can't really see this because there's a sticker on it, but it's stick fast, medium CA glue. I get that from PSI. I get this from Packard Supply, and I have noticed that Woodcraft is now carrying stick fast. I love this. I use about 3 coats of this, and I like their aerosol activator from Stick Fast. And I've used the pump kind, but when the pumps break, it just gets all over your hand. It's kind of nasty. I really like the aerosol. It's quick, just a couple of shots while it's running, and it's cured. Those are my preferences. Somebody, there's all kinds out there. Every turner has their favorites, and they'll tell you I'm wrong, whatever. My advice is just test some stuff out and find what works in your shop. A great way to learn is if you belong to a club. If not, get yourself in a club. There'll be guys there that use this stuff, and some of them will use Mercury CA, and some of them will use XYZ CA, and you can go to their shops and hang out and have them show you and pick the one that you like the best.
Brad asks, with lacquer or poly, putting enough coats on it, then letting it cure maybe a week, then wet sand with fine grit paper. I don't know what he was asking or saying there.
Okay, I do.
You do?
Was it Brad?
Yeah.
Okay. Janet was asking about the finish on her pen. She put a poly on there. Brad said you build your coats up, then let it sit for about a week and cure. Then he said you can come back and wet sand. What that's going to do is smooth it out and give you a smooth, glassy finish. That's a lot of work, so it would have to be a really special pen for me to do that too, but that's great advice. I did not know that. It makes sense because I've done that on other types of woodworking where I've used poly and I've wet sanded it to smooth it, and it just never clicked to do that with the pen.
Todd Malibu asks, are all CA glues the same quality?
No, they are not. I have tried to use the Stick Fast Thin CA glue. There's something about it, and as you use CA, you'll gain a favorite, and you'll notice other CAs are not the same. I got in a jam one time, and I went up to the local big box store, and I bought some Loctite CA, and I was going to use that as my medium to finish pens. It is different. There is the CA, that the viscosity on CA glues, you wouldn't think it's medium, thin, and thick. There are all kinds of viscosities in between those. Every one is a slight bit difference, and that makes or breaks the quality of the CA glue, in my opinion.
Matt asks, any chance for an online store in the future? I would love to buy some of your pens.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. It's tough because I don't produce a huge quantity of pens. Generally, the pens that I will take to the show are the pens that you guys have seen in the videos because I don't have a whole lot of time, and I try to share what time I do have on these videos with all of you. I would love to do that, and I am extremely involved in my children's lives. All of their activities, I go to their practices, I go to their games, I go to their plays. Everything they do, I try to be involved because I don't want to miss that. As my kids get into high school and are doing less and needing less attention, I plan to turn and work more to the point where when they go off to college, I would love to start an online store, or maybe even consider a brick and mortar, which would have to have some type of a web ability to sell on the web as well. So the answer is yes, but I don't think in the near future. I've just got too many irons in the fire, and my family's just too important right now.
College View asks, should you buy the same brand of CA and activator?
This is strictly an opinion. Yes. That's strictly my opinion. You may talk to somebody else and they'll say, no, use Zap CA glue and use Mercury activator. Everybody has an opinion. Best way is just to try it. If you got a buddy in a club that uses Zap or uses Mercury, ask if you can borrow it and do a squirt or two of it. Surely they'll be happy to share with you because everybody likes to share, what they know. So.
Crown of Jewels says, I'm sure you've already mentioned it, but what buffing system are you using?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go back over that. This is called the Acrylic Pen Buffing System. It was designed by Barry Gross. Now, Barry Gross is the owner of Arizona Silhouettes. If you go to any of the woodworking shows, you'll see Barry there demonstrating. He developed this. He sells it at Arizona Silhouettes. I don't know what the price is there. I got this one. It was a gift from Penn State, and it was a gift from my parents. Penn State didn't give it to me, and it was $48.95.
Danny Moore says, have you ever bought blanks from the Facebook auctions? What's the blank, for instance?
The answer is yes. It was a long time ago, and I bought some super flame box elder that somebody had. I bought a couple of blanks, and I don't even remember what I paid for them. Since then, I've watched a lot of auctions. I just hadn't bid on anything, and the real reason why is lately I've been doing a lot of videos where guys are sending me blanks so that they can see me turn their blanks. So I've had a steady supply of blanks, and I haven't needed to go out and buy any because I've got about 4 or 5 blanks over here that have come in the last couple of weeks that I want to get turned, and so that's been keeping me very busy. Would I buy from them? Heck yeah. Some of those guys, I'm on that online auction site on Facebook, and I sit and watch them, and some of those guys are they just blow my mind with their blanks. So I think it's a great idea. I love the fact that people are doing that. Definitely support those guys because they're working hard to give you something you can't get anywhere else.
Carson Walker asks, do you use medium CA for gluing tubes?
Yes, I do, Carson. Yes, I do. I use the same exact medium CA. Works great. It works absolutely great. I have not had a failure. I used to use, I think it was Loctite. It's almost rubbery when it dries. I can't think of the brand the one it was, but I got it at the big box store. And I had failures. I've been using this and I've never had a failure. Rough your tubes up good and use that stuff like somebody else is paying for it when you glue your tube in, and you will not have failures. It works great.
Brad asks, would you like some flame box elder blanks?
I'd love some. That'd be wonderful. If you want to send me a couple, that would be fantastic. Thank you. I love receiving stuff to turn. It makes it easy for me to keep doing videos for you guys too. So.
That looks like it.
All right, guys. I think we're going to go ahead and cap this one off. It's been a great night. I had a great time. This will be posted out on YouTube. So if you come up with ideas or questions, go back out to the comments and drop them down there. And I try to answer all my comments. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate it. And I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon. Take care, everybody.